day and welcome. My name is Christiana Whitman, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. Thank you for joining us at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center on our third episode of the Lunch Hour with Peace, the Prevention and Training Branch, a lunch and learn series every third Wednesday of the month here on Zoom. This space is for you to learn from our guest speakers, hear about available resources in our community, and connect with us at Peace. To learn more about our branch and the upcoming episodes in our series, visit peaceguam.org and press subscribe on the top right of the homepage. You can also follow us on Instagram to get some updates about what's going on in the Peace branch. March of 2020 has forever changed our lives, the way we talk, the way we act, behave, and even feel. This new normal, as it's been coined, is still rather unfamiliar and uncertain, and there may be conflicting feelings and reactions individuals may be experiencing. So today we'll be really talking about how we can maintain wellness and promote positive coping skills while still grieving the loss of our previous lifestyle and traditions. The intensity and the impact of the pandemic may be hitting all of us harder these days. The holiday season is a time to typically gather and celebrate with friends and family. The excitement of planning for holiday parties and shopping for Christmas gifts fills the air. Families gathering at light shows at local hotels and parks for photo opportunities were anticipated, and religious activities filled the month of December. So being connected to the people we love and engaging in these festive activities helps to bring peace, joy, and hope even on our darkest days. Then we experience a global crisis, a pandemic that took away some of the most vital gifts in our lives: physical connection, face-to-face encounters, and even those warm hugs we miss so much. Prior to the pandemic, individuals were already experiencing pre-existing conditions of grief and hardships in their lives. Perhaps it was a loss of a loved one through death, divorce, or a loss of finance or a job, a loss of trust or security, or any other loss that may have brought some difficulty and pain in your lives. Today, we'll be talking to some local subject matter experts who work with individuals who've experienced losses and hardships before and during this pandemic. And we're so fortunate to have two people from our community here with us today who've taken some really some good time from their schedules to be with us. So we'll be hearing their stories and how they've been able to have an attitude of gratitude and continue to share this gift with others, even in the midst of this new normal. Before anything else, here are just some reminders and some basic housekeeping. So first, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be accessible following today's session at peaceguam.org and on JIBWIC's Facebook page. Second, all participants are muted throughout the session. You're welcome to use the chat box that you see at the bottom there to say hello and connect with other participants or attendees who might be here today. Third, all questions directed to our speakers or any of the Peace staff must be submitted using the Q&A section, which is being monitored throughout the session. It's located at the bottom of your screen, and after the presentation, we'll have some time to answer any questions related to the topic. Michelle, if you can wave to the camera and say hello.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining.
So Michelle and other Peace staff will be monitoring the Q&A submissions, and depending on the richness of our discussion, we may not have enough time today to go over every single question, or if there's something you just have don't want to address today or right now, you may actually contact us at staff@peaceguam.org, and we're happy to respond to you that way. Some concepts discussed in today's topic may trigger some discomfort or negative feelings from past trauma. You're not alone. If you're looking for one-on-one support, we do have staff on standby that you can message privately via the chat box. I'm gonna actually ask Sarah, who's our Keep Me Safe, to say hello so that you see how kind she looks.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. I'll be your Keep Safe for today.
If you are needing to reach out to staff, you'll actually, I think the only option there at the bottom in the chat box is to send a message to all participants. I mean, to all panelists, sorry, to all panelists, and just let us know that you need some assistance, and Sarah will be able to assist you. And then if you're not comfortable reaching out to our staff or those present here, remember that the Guam Behavioral Health Crisis Hotline is available actually 24/7 at 647-8833 or 4, and that's available. Lastly, sorry, so a lot of housekeeping. We're scheduled for 12 to 1:30 today, but we also know that we have a lunch hour and not lunch hours, right? So we'll actually keep the formal discussion until about 1, and close to 1, we'll check in to see what the questions look like. And I'll kind of send you guys a reminder. So we'll formally end the discussion around 1, but if you have questions, we're happy to stick around, or I'm going to volunteer my panelists. I think they're happy to stick around to answer more questions, in the event that you have them and they're not addressed in the hour. Okay. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center is grateful to have both of you on this episode. I'm actually going to allow you to introduce yourselves. If you could share your name, where you're from, the organization you represent, or any little tidbits you want to share, and your role in the community, and maybe specifically why you think that we asked you to participate in this episode of maintaining an attitude of gratitude. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm looking at Robbie right now, so I'll go ahead and start with Robbie, if that's okay.
All right, thank you, Christiana. Hafide, everybody. My name is Robbie Bautista. I am actually a part of the Rotaract Club of the Marianas, a nonprofit organization. I am the current vice president-elect. So next year will be my year, which I'm excited and nervous about. But yeah, so Rotaract has been a partner of Peace and Guam Behavioral for many years already. They've graciously funded us to host a lot of our youth conferences and youth related activities in the community. And that is a huge part of what we do. But of course, Rotaract is an international organization. If you're familiar with Rotary, that is the umbrella of us. So we're kind of I want to say we're like the teenagers of, of the entire international organization. But yeah, that's me. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. Okay, Dar, can you share a little bit about your role in the community and who you are and who you're representing today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christiana, for having me here today. Hello, everyone. Hafide. My name is Darlene Garcia. I'm actually originally from Guam, just came back from Toronto, Canada. So from cold to tropical weather, big difference for me. But I'm so happy to actually be here in the present time zone with you all. I come representing the Grief Recovery Guam and CNMI team. And if you don't know what grief recovery is, we are a action-based program that teaches people how to heal from many different losses that they have in their life. And I, stumbled upon this particular program from the loss of my husband about 5 years ago. And so I'm very familiar with deep loss, deep grief. And it's always been my purpose since he died to be able to give back to the community. After I learned how to heal myself, I felt that it was very important for me to not keep that information to myself, but to continue to share that with the world, to share my story, to inspire hope and light to people, to let everyone know that you're not alone and that grief is very normal and natural, and that we have a very safe and structured program that can help you through your healing journey. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Dar. And let me go ahead and just ask you. This wasn't really part of the intro question, but how long have you been? I'm sorry. How long have you been active in giving grief a voice?
So, see, my husband died in July of 2015, and I became certified in February of 2016. So I've been doing the work since then.
All right, thank you. And Robbie, it's really because Dar shared what brought her to that organization. Can you share a little bit about what brought you to Rotaract and how long you've been serving actively or participating actively?
Yes. So it's really crazy because I've only been in Rotaract officially inducted and officially active for about 3 years, since early 2017. I believe our February general meeting is when I got officially inducted. But I initially started meetings after I graduated college in 2016. The first meeting I ever came to was in October of 2016. And so from that point, I kind of, it was it was a step that I felt I needed to take because I was finishing college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how to network. I was scared to network. And I was told about this organization. Actually, a friend of mine that had brought us in, she shared it with us. And during college, obviously I could have joined, but I thought it was too much for me to handle. So when I graduated, I knew that I had to put myself out there, and honestly, it's the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made, to be a part of this organization. And so a lot has happened in the last 3 years being a part of it. I actually, small fact, I actually probably should not have been our current VP and president-elect, only because there was an age gap age cap for the Rotaract Club, but then they abolished that, or like they kind of got rid of it. And so that kind of gave me the opportunity to still stay on at least for a couple more years. So very grateful for that.
I'm sure the organization is grateful for that and your continued service also. I kind of want to highlight that also, just because for the participants who are listening, I've noticed, just being a part of prevention and training and at Guam Behavioral Health, just how the pandemic has really inspired some grassroots organizations to also pivot in the services that they're providing. And so I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later, but you're both Rotaract and Give Grief a Voice are organizations that prevention and training has partnered with over the years. So I think it's really inspiring to see these grassroots organizations really develop and continue to serve the community and our needs. So thank you again. So with that, and I guess this is where we'll address this, is how has the pandemic really shifted your role in the community? And for this, we'll go ahead and start with Robbie.
All right, yeah, so with Rotaract, one of our mottos is actually service above self, right? And that's really what we're all about. We love giving back to our community, both locally and internationally, especially with our club specifically. Again, I've mentioned that Rotaract and Rotary is very international. The district that we're a part of, majority of the clubs are actually based in Japan. And so there's only the one club here on Guam, where in other countries, for instance, like Japan is a big country, right? So there's 16 clubs within our district, but there's actually a lot more because there's more other districts within that country. But for Guam, there's just one. And so we kind of we do our best to kind of shine as bright as we can, because not just because we're from Guam and we're from a small island, but really just trying to also showcase ourselves and what we can do, despite the fact that we're not from a big country or state or anything like that. So and so what we've done, how we've had to pivot, I guess, lately is truthfully, it's been really difficult. Because we're used to being out there helping, like physically, right? Doing the labor. That's what we love to do. Yes, we like to have fellowship with one another and bond with one another. But again, of course, we've experienced that loss as well, right? So being able to physically help our community and knowing that we can't do that has really, put our spirits down, especially in the beginning, especially with our current president, President Kohaku Flynn, one of my closest friends. She had such big plans, such big goals, right? And I'm sure everyone here can attest to that same sentiment at the beginning of the year, even, back in March and before all of this happened. And so we've done our best to pivot, obviously in terms of financial, like being able to always fundraise and whatnot, not just for our club, but also being able to help community organizations to fundraise, our attempts that we've made. But of course, every time there's a shift or change, of course, in the increase in cases, and then that kind of brings back our, our progress that the island has seen. Obviously, when we went back into our second lockdown in August, we were so hopeful. We were ready to kind of do things. And then of course, the second lockdown hit, and that again, kind of was a little hard for us to navigate again. But so like the most recent event that we were able to help out with, and we were physically able to, and really it was only 3 of us, and I was one of them. And it was so heartwarming to be able to do. And I just kind of soaked it all in. So it was the Operation Christmas Drop that we were a part of, that Rotary had invited us to be a part of. Of course, we purchased the box to be able to be dropped on an island, but at the same time, we went there and actually packed. We were actually able to pack a couple of boxes because there was a box next to us of the family that wasn't able to come, and because we were right there, we figured why not. So, but doing that event, I really did my best on a personal level to really soak it all in and soak up that service, that act of service of doing something for others, especially something as big as Operation Christmas Drop. And it's so much better than the movie, guys. It's nothing like the movie. Like the feels you get when you're there and just knowing what it's, what it's doing, what it's for. I really I had a feeling that probably might be the only service. I really hope it's not, but it might be the only service that we might physically be able to do for the foreseeable future. And so I really just kind of took my time to soak it all in. And me, along with my president and then one of our fellow members, Riza, that attended, it was just that much more moving to know that we were able to do that. And of course, giving money, donating, it'll always be great to know that we can help fund. But of course, even as a nonprofit, right, we're all doing this as volunteer work, and even so, essentially, a lot of it comes from our own money, right? Asking our members to donate and stuff like that, and of course, we try our best to do that, and we try our best to encourage our members to do that. But again, the act of doing a physical service, things that we've done in the past, helping Island Girl Power, running our youth leadership conference, which we didn't get to do this year. A lot of those things really make an impact. And it's really one of those things that you realize, I'm sure everyone by this point has realized, what it means to physically do something as opposed to just like donating money or, sending well wishes, which is, of course, again, is all really great and still meaningful. But again, when it comes back to the physical aspect of putting in, the labor of it and putting in all your efforts into it really means a lot for our organization. And so that's one of the biggest things we've had to, kind of pivot around and kind of just tell ourselves that, like, give ourselves grace that, hey, we're doing the best we can. And I'm sure everyone is in the same boat as us. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I
No, absolutely. I was just gonna kind of catch you in that, because a lot of what we're hoping to touch on and remind the community is that to embrace these moments, right? And how can we if we're normally used to having 12 large service events throughout the year, highlighting every month or every quarter, so how can we take that and just kind of hone in that spirit and that service above self and put it into one event, if that's all we have, and kind of remind us for the next year, like this is and have reminders of how important these single moments are. And like you say, it's almost like the quality of the experience over the quantity. So no, it's absolutely a reminder. I'm glad I thought the movie was cute, so I can't even imagine what it would be like in real life. So but let me go ahead and ask Dar to kind of, because I know that her organization has been quite busy in a different way than they typically have been. So I'll let you kind of share how your role has been has kind of shifted during this pandemic, Dar.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, when the shutdown first happened, to your point, Christiana, in your opening, it really did shift our world to a place that we're probably never going to go back to again. And one of the things that we had to take a step back and realize was that as grief recovery specialists, we are not first responders. And so even though we give from our heart and we were there to help people heal, we were also in the middle of grieving our own circumstances and the things that were happening around us. And we needed to allow the world to kind of just go through this motion before we actually stepped in as grief recovery specialists. And because our programs are all certified through a big another company, right? This is not a program that we developed on our own. We had to follow protocol in that way, and so it was really difficult. And I'm going to speak for myself personally. It was so difficult for me to sit back and watch the world, live in fear, live in sadness, live in this deep grief, and knowing that there wasn't anything that we could do in those beginning moments. And so a few months had passed, and I was very grateful that the Grief Recovery Institute actually pivoted very quickly in offering a lot of our programs virtually. But that also meant that we also had to get recertified in doing these things online. And so we quickly had to adjust in that manner. And in the meantime, to your point, Christiana, we have been very busy. So what we've done over the last maybe 5-6 months is we've really taken our work into the community and offered these free grief talks, is what we call them. And so even though we weren't able to offer our programs in person like most of us love to do, I'm like Robbie, I'm a person that loves to just be out there. I love to give hugs. I love to do things in the physical world, especially when it comes to grief and loss. People need that hug, right, Christiana? Like you said, we miss those hugs. And sometimes holding space for someone means like sitting right beside them, not saying anything, but just being right there with them in that moment. And we couldn't even do that. We still can't do that, right? In many places. And so we really had to be creative in how we were still going to be able to connect with the community and still be able to hold space, still be able to provide inspiration and hope to the people that we serve. And so we do these virtual grief talks online. We do them once a month. There was actually a couple of months where we did a campaign, and we did it in conjunction with you guys, and we did several in the month, right? And so we did it once a week. And so just depending on where the community is at, we have learned to pivot and to be present and be able to serve in that way. And so, we're very grateful I'm very grateful to have a team in both Guam and Saipan, these ladies and a few gentlemen that have huge hearts and are willing to be vulnerable and share their stories and be able to help our communities through the virtual platform to share how we ourselves have been able to get through this pandemic. And now we've got several of us now that are actually doing the programs online. So pretty excited about that. We're now able to do these programs and be able to help people the way we used to before the shutdown happened.
It's amazing how, it's amazing how quickly, people have been able to, it's almost like once, we had that kind of moment of, like you said, fear and uncertainty in that first wave. And then we're kind of like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we can still continue to do the work that we're doing in a space that's not really allowing us to work with some of the most vulnerable populations, right? So I've just been amazed at how adaptable people have been over the last year. But like you said, not without dealing with their own, with our own personal grief throughout the way and our own personal loss, like Robbie said, about just, doing all the service and doing all that direct work. So with that said, I guess, in the work that you're doing, and I know you said, Dar said, we're not frontliners, but you are in, kind of the frontliners, the people who need your services. So what changes have you noticed from your clients or the audiences that you're serving? And maybe speak to that first, is what changes have you noticed from the people that you're typically working with? And then for this, we could start with Dar, and then we'll kind of give Robbie a little chance to think about that.
Honestly, grief is so normal and natural. And even though we're living in a new normal, is what people want to call it, grief and loss has been around since the beginning of time. And so I want to say that things have not been different in that way for us from that perspective. What we've had to do, though, is we've had to help people to understand that what they're going through during this pandemic is grief. So a lot of people didn't realize that, staying home, being, having to do virtual learning with their kids, not being able to go out and socialize with their friends, and, just all of these little different things that have changed that Christiana, you talked about, that the conflicting feelings and, just a lot of the familiar things that we're used to. people didn't realize that that was actually grief, that people were actually grieving. And so, you know, if there's anything that we've seen a change in, or maybe I should say, how we've had to educate people is we've had to help people to understand that we are all grieving. You don't have to lose a loved one through death. You don't have to be experiencing divorce, or go through some sort of traumatic event for it to be called grief. And once we started to educate the communities and share with people that grief is everything that we're experiencing, all of the unfamiliar, all of the conflicting feelings that we're feeling, now it helped people to come and migrate towards us and listen to what we had to say, because they were like, yes, I am going through that, right? I am grieving. And so that elephant in the room was no longer silent, if you will. That elephant was really trumping his horn really loud during this pandemic, and we wanted to be that space for them to be able to stay calm in the midst of all of that loudness, if you will, from this pandemic. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yes, it definitely does. I think it also reminds us, like I like to call, I like to start a lot of my talks, or a lot of times when I'm talking, doing outreach, I like to ask the members of the group, what's to describe their COVID silver lining, if you will. And, I know sometimes it can be really tough to think of what good has maybe come out of this whole experience. But for me, in a lot of the work that I'm doing, and I think I can speak a lot for Guam Behavioral Health, is that it's opened up that space to really talk about a lot of these emotional and mental health well-being, and how important it is for us to take care of ourselves. And kind of really, we've been struggling with that over so many years, about the stigma with discussing and talking about mental health. And I think more people are, I don't know if it's because we're all at home and we're starting to feel the effects, or what that could look like and what it could potentially turn into, that more people are open and and also open to getting the resources. So that, yeah. And it sounds like that's what you're seeing also, Dar, is that people are, open, and it could just start with, listening, catching a Facebook live stream or something like that. And then I think about the community service organizations, because we're home more, these groups are popping up, and it also has given people a feeling that maybe you need to, if I have a job, I need to give something of myself, because there's so many others who are without. So Ravi, can you kind of speak to that? And how have you, if any, seen changes in the people that you're serving, or some of the members of your organization?
Yeah, so earlier this summer, actually, so as I mentioned briefly earlier, that every year we actually hold a Rotaract Youth Leadership Conference. And so this year, of course, with the help of Peace and Michelle and Sarah, we were able to still hold something, right? And so, of course, it was virtually. And what we actually do for our community, specifically our youth, is we actually ran our leadership and resiliency program. So there was a lot of work put in between me and my members. And there was like a small staff of 4, actually started with like 2 of us, but we realized we had to have more people at least to help us. But we did it on a virtual platform. It was quite a bit of work to transform it and mold it to work for a virtual platform. Again, because of the lack of face-to-face and really kind of reading like body language, right? Because we also didn't make it mandatory for our participants to have their camera on, so we actually couldn't see their faces the entire time unless they spoke or unless they were comfortable. And so we really had to not only just keep our spirits up, but really kind of take in the material. And for me, I've been a part of producing and was this implementing the leadership and residency program almost for about the last 2 years. So majority of the time I've been with Rotaract, initially under the leadership of one of our past presidents, Chris Serla. And I've learned so much from that program. But let me tell you, when we taught it this summer, and then we had to make all these tweaks and stuff, not just for a virtual platform, but also looking at the subject matter and really how can we convey this properly. I was learning too, I felt like I was relearning all these things. And I think what was important for us for us and our membership in our organization, and what we're seeing is, yes, we still want to serve our community and our, like our youth and the other organizations that we work with, but we also kind of started looking at like ourselves and how can we better ourselves to be ready, right? Because again, our community, our organization specifically is very service oriented. Again, speaking to all the physical, service that we can do and that we take part in. And so we kind of had to shift our minds in terms of, okay, we'd love to donate all the money we could, but then that's also going to kind of leave us broke to do anything in the future. But also, and then of course, times are hard for all of us, whatever that looked like for each of our members. And so again, donating money wasn't always something that we could do. And then of course, not being able to do the physical activity of service. So recently to conversations with me and my current president, we've talked about how we can just kind of build up us and our organization and our membership, and not just bonding with one another more, but also just within ourselves, so that we're ready come, fingers crossed, next spring, like things get a lot better. We are starting to see that, right? Lately, slowly but surely, we're gonna get there. And so we feel that in order to benefit our, our audience and our consumers, so to speak, is to really look at ourselves. And so that's kind of what the steps we've taken to be ready.
Thank you. Thanks. Dar, did you want to add anything? No? No? Okay. Okay, so I guess, and I do want to address probably later on, because, we are starting to see kind of the light, it's with like a vaccine coming in, and the new year, there's kind of these signs of hope all over. But we also know, if we grew up in Guam, we know that when there's a big storm, there's also the period of recovery. And so what does that look like for us, and how does that shift your roles? So we'll get there, but I wanted to kind of hone in on also maybe can you kind of share some of the positive coping skills that you personally adopted, and how you've maybe altered some of your existing traditions, or like kind of turned your previous lifestyle into this, and adapted it to this new normal? Because I was kind of giggling, because when Dar was talking about, this, I mean, it's not giggling about grief, but I typically use the example when we're talking about kind of normalizing grief as my friends and my husband and my family, we typically go to brunch fairly often, and it's our Sunday kind of thing. We love to do it, and it's a time to share and catch up and eat well and just enjoy. And it's a very, I really grieved that whole experience throughout the year. And I remember when things were opening up, it was probably one of the few arguments my spouse and I ever had, was that I was ready to go to brunch and he was like, no, we're not going. And so it ended up, escalating to, we were actually really, or I was very upset. I don't know how upset he was, but I was very upset with him. And, something very simple. And, it really did cause some disturbance in the household for a while. And so it makes me giggle now, because we were able to get through it and talk through it. And but it is, some of these normal, again, regular traditions that we have, as small as they might be, can be very difficult to shift to something else. So maybe if you could share a little bit, about how you shifted your brunch traditions, or other, maybe more significant traditions or changes in your own personal lifestyle. And I'll start with Dar.
Yeah, so changes in traditions is something that I have been experiencing since Frank died 5 years ago. And so this is not anything new for me. And so, I always get fired up and passionate when we talk about this subject, because, sometimes people forget that we're constantly in a changing environment in our own lives, right? We go from a child who is going from elementary school to middle school, or middle school to high school. So we're constantly evolving as a human being, as a human race. There's always so many different things. And I get that the pandemic was one of those things that we were not prepared for, and it just kind of shifted us in this place within a split second. But that's how I felt when Frank died, that my life changed in a split second. So I have been changing traditions and dealing with all of these unfamiliar things for the last 5 years. But no doubt this pandemic has also forced me to do some other things. So I just want to give you an example. 5 years in July was Frank's angelversary, and we had big plans, right? I was going to come to Guam. We were going to have a big celebration. It's a milestone, right, of 5 years. And I wasn't able to do that because of the pandemic. And so the first thing that I had to do as a grief recovery specialist, we always tell our clients, and we do this for ourselves, is we have to acknowledge where we're at in that present moment. And so for me, mine was sadness, it was disappointment, it was anger and frustration. That I couldn't be home with my kids and my family to celebrate and honor him in the way that we wanted to and that we had planned for about a year. We were planning this, and so I had to just sit in my suck for a little bit. And I always tell people that just sit in it and honor the space that you're in. Allow yourself, give yourself that permission to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, right? And so that's what has helped me through every single moment that this pandemic has put in front of my face. For whatever reason, I've had to feel any type of feeling other than happiness, joy, gratitude. I first had to acknowledge all of the bad stuff. I had to sit in my suck. So that's what I want to tell everybody. It's just acknowledge your feelings, give yourself permission to feel. Don't stay there, right? After you've done that and you've allowed yourself to feel, now it's time to get creative, right? So on Frank's Angelversary, after I sat in my suck, got my family together and I said, okay, guys, we need some ideas. How are we going to do this? And you know what? It was the most amazing 5-year Angelversary that we had. I mean, we had people virtually, and you know what it did? It allowed people that weren't able to come to Guam to participate with us. Right? People shared things online. We had this private group and we had themes going on for about 7 days and everybody participated. And so there was tears, there was joy, there was laughter, there was sharing memories of Frank. And I was just I was so grateful. I was so grateful for Frank's family, his friends, and my family and my friends that came together and helped me pull this off. And so get creative, guys. I think, Christiana, you said that these grassroots organizations that are coming up, I love to watch all of these things that are happening because it's forcing people to sit back and go, well, what can we do different? Right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there that don't know or maybe don't have the community to help them through this. And that's what we're here for, right? For those that don't have people like us, that we can help to help to promote those creative juices to let people know that they're not alone, that there is support out there. So again, acknowledge the space that you're in, embrace your suck, feel your human emotions, don't stay there, get to work and being creative, bring community together. This is Guam. This is what I love about being a part of this island is we are so supportive of each other. I would never want to be from anywhere else. Such a proud islander. And so those are the things that I have done to be able to get me through some of the darkest days of this pandemic.
Thanks for that. So I'm in therapy, or I'm an LPC, and so that's kind of typically what I start off with clients is that it's probably going to be really yucky for a little bit, and hopefully not forever. But you're gonna have to embrace that yuckiness for a while and know that it's going to be really, really yucky before it gets even a little bit better. So I can definitely relate to that, sitting in your suck. So that the phrase is going to stick with me for a while. So thanks for sharing that, Dar. And I'm glad you had a beautiful angelversary for your husband. Robbie, you want to share some of the things that you've done or how some positive ways you've adapted?
I just want to say I love listening to Dar speak. We've had her actually present in a few of our meetings, also with our youth during our virtual LRP. I'm gonna try not to get emotional for myself, but the thing that's really helped me, and I love Dar's saying, "Sit in your suck." I have another saying that I hope you can take it with you too, is lean into the hard. For me, that's what I did. I leaned into the hard. I want to say honestly, the first 3.5 months when this all started, about mid-March, I was home. I was just binging TV, Netflix, eating all this stuff. I was forced. I was furloughed. There was no work for me to do, and I just, like, for a while I was fine, right? And then eventually I realized I couldn't ignore like things like me just looking in the mirror and not liking what I saw. And just all of my internal stuff, all of my internal insecurities that I had to deal with, not even thinking about like our organization and what was going to happen, but just myself. And so for me, 3 months later, you know, I knew something had to change. And in all of this craziness, all of everything that's going on, like the one thing that I've learned, number one lesson in all of this is that you can only control the controllable. And for me, that was me. You know, I can only control myself and how I felt and how I reacted and responded. And so I started my fitness journey actually back in June. I made the decision, I invested in my fitness, and it may not seem like the best idea because I didn't have a lot of money then, but it was a promising opportunity that was like, hey, do this for yourself and just see, you know, just trying something different and get out of your comfort zone. And so you know, I had started that journey and I saw progress every day. You know, I felt all the motivation and love and support from our fitness community, which was endless. And then in October, late October, actually, my mom passed away. And that was very hard for me. You know, initially hearing it, I broke down, called my brother and my sister. They weren't here. I freaked out because my brother and sister weren't here. And that was obviously one of our biggest fears, was that, especially in this pandemic, something were to happen to our parents. I'm the only one here on Guam. My brother and sister are out in the States, you know, and then what would that look like for them to come here? Thankfully, you know, the first few days was really hard trying to figure all of that out. But we figured it out, and we did the best that we could. And for me, the biggest thing was just them getting here. I needed them here, you know. Of course, I had my husband to lean on, and all my friends. But again, it was really hard and really different, right, to experience a loss like that. And you couldn't see your friends. And actually, to this day, I feel like my friends probably think it's very amazing that I did this. But actually, that same Friday that I found out that my mom passed that morning, we actually had our October general meeting for Rotaract. And I had reached out to my president when I was able to speak properly. I reached out to her, I let her know what had happened. Of course, she sent her love and condolences to me. And but I told her honestly, and even actually before I got on that call, I said to my husband, I was like, is it weird that I still want to go to our general meeting? And he's like, no, if that's what you want to do. And then I said the exact same thing. I asked the exact same question to my friend Kwaku. I asked her, like, is it weird that I still want to come? And she's like, are you sure? You know, because that's such a weird notion. Like, why would you want to attend a meeting like, and your mom just passed, right? But for me, the way I saw it was, I needed my friends. I needed to see people that love and support me. And if that was the only way I was going to get it, then that's what I was going to do. And so I did it. And yeah, it was a little bit hard getting through the meeting and listening to our speaker. I did the best I could. I didn't always have my camera on. But yeah, and then eventually I had my friend Ko reach out to all of our members and all of our close friends to just let them know what had happened. But yeah, for me, that was hard. But the thing is, like, for me, if I hadn't started my fitness journey and had that to lean on to get me through, because in the process between June and October, not only was I just working at being healthier, eating healthier, doing something for myself, but I was also practicing things like practicing gratitude, being intentional every day, you know, working on my personal development. I was working on my mind and how I thought and how I processed and how I just did things, you know. And of course, in that whole time, I had to learn I even unlearned things and relearn them a different way, because the way I learned them maybe didn't quite serve me. And so that's what I did. And so when the loss of my mom happened, and this is something my husband can also kind of comment on too, is that the way he sees where I'm at versus where he was at when his mom passed 5 years ago, you know, he's so surprised and just, he's trying to understand it, of course, but at the same time, he's having a hard time understanding it because, you know, for him, 2 months down the line, he was still, you know, very much in his suck, you know, very much in his feelings, just kind of on autopilot on a lot of things. But for me, you know, I'm doing all the things. But again, so I lean into the hard. And by leaning into my hard, which is, you know, dealing with the loss of my mom, still also dealing with the fact that my brother and sister aren't here. And then of course, all the other things that COVID has brought, right? By leaning into it, I allow myself to better process it and to work through it. And I think that's really important is, you know, you want to work through this. And so when you're in your suck, yes, you feel all the things. And when you're leaning into your heart, you feel all the things. But again, you don't stay there, right? You don't want to stay there because then you're just going to stay there. You're going to stay stuck. And that's kind of what I don't want, because that's where I was before I started my fitness journey. That's where I was when this whole pandemic happened. I felt stuck, and I felt super stuck, like not just, you know, mentally and emotionally, like physically with myself, but also with all the things that I couldn't control. And so having my fitness community and having the support of, you know, my family and my friends that, you know, oftentimes check on me and all that stuff, and just leaning into, you know, you also want to choose your heart, right? And working out, it's for some, I know it's hard to understand, and that's okay. I don't really, if it's hard for you to understand how working out has helped me and still continues to help me, that's okay. For me, it's just as long as you respect it, because for me, that's what helps. That's what's worked for me throughout this whole time. And yes, I still have days, of course, where I wake up and I'm deep in my feels, and I am, you know, and I sit in it. I let myself sit in it. I let myself cry it out, whatever that looks like. I let myself eat the things. That's okay too. You know, just don't keep eating the things. And that's what it is. That's what has worked for me. And honestly, if I really didn't have this, if I hadn't already been working on myself and working to shift my mindset, to better understand things and better cope with things, I mean, I'm not saying I'd be a huge mess, but I wouldn't be grieving, you know, very, very well. I wouldn't be dealing with things as well as I have been, I guess. So.
Thank you so much, Robbie, for sharing that and having the courage to speak about that right now, and being so vulnerable. I just want to highlight a couple of comments that have come up in our chat while you guys are both speaking. So thank you for sharing, Dar. I actually didn't realize it would be called grieving, and it makes sense because I've been struggling mentally and getting through this new normal. And then another comment is, talk about the power and vulnerability. We appreciate you, Robbie and Dar, for being real, in big captions or in caps lock. So thank you for being real for our participants and our audience members, and being open to sitting in the suck and leaning into the hard, which I'm sure that the people participating today are all going to be echoing through and keeping as kind of mottos throughout as they're getting through this new normal and getting through this tough period. But with that, I guess I wanted to add, you mentioned how you've kind of adapted or adopted skills for yourselves. And I do want to remind also audience members, if you have questions that you want to ask our participants or our panelists, go ahead and start putting them in the Q&A box now, so we can get those answered before our lunch hour kind of closes. But I did want to ask, as we're kind of getting ready for a lot of what you described, Robbie, about, the first shutdown and like kind of eating everything and doing, being sluggish and watching TV. It just reminds me of typhoon mode, right? And that's a lot of what I was doing too. So I didn't quite get the finish dirty part, but I at least fixed my eating, which has helped a lot the second time around. But when we're not sure what's going on, we give ourselves a lot of permission to like just let go, right? And not really care about really taking, making ourselves a priority, especially our health, right? Whether it's our mental health or our physical health. So I guess what tips could you offer our listeners right now that might help them in coping with the changes, especially during the holidays and moving into this period of recovery? I think one thing that I think I realized is that, this whole thing, it's been a marathon, right? We've been in this whole space for the long haul. And, although we can see the light, we're starting to see the finish line, it's still a ways to go. There's still, and there's going to be a lot of recovery at the end of that, because it's just been such a very like an ultra marathon, right? So I guess what tips can you offer our listeners for dealing with and moving into this recovery period? And then I can start with Dar, and then we'll turn it over to Robbie.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually just saw that the governor had opened up a little bit more on some of the social distancing measures. So I think that that's hope for the island. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be embracing that. I know it's not what everyone, would like to see, especially with those of us that have really big families, right? Some of those numbers may not make sense for people with big families. But I think one of the things that, I think people need to understand and realize is to respect that we're all in a different space moving into this recovery period. Because there's so many experts out there on the pandemic and it's like, who do you listen to? And so, Christiana, earlier you had talked a little bit about, the whole brunch thing with your family and how that was really important to you and you were excited to go do that. And then your husband was like, no way. And so those are just like little things, right? Just kind of an example of even in the household, there could be difference of opinions about how things should be done. Moving through into this recovery period in this pandemic. So I just want to ask people and encourage everyone to just be respectful and mindful that we're all different. And, just if you're okay going out and maybe someone else isn't, make that be okay for you and make that be okay for them, because I think that that's one of the things is when we start to judge others, it becomes really difficult to really build community. And this is a time when we need it the most, right? So I think that it's important to be grateful for what we have. The governor just opened up some things. Let's be grateful for those things, even though, again, it may not be what you are looking for. But I think that the island is moving in a good step in the right direction. I mean, I saw that score. I don't even really know what that means. All I know is that it's really low. And so I think low is supposed to be good. So I'm grateful for that, especially because I've been away for so long. And I was just like, gosh, am I going to step into a war zone when I get to Guam, And so coming home around this time and seeing that things are really turning for the better, puts a lot of gratitude in my heart. So, just find a lot of gratitude, like Robbie had said earlier, in the things that you can control. There's so much in our environment today, external things that we cannot control as individuals. We can only control ourselves, like Robbie had mentioned, how we feel, how we're, we need to make those choices on what we're going to believe and what we're not going to believe about this pandemic. And that doesn't mean that the people that we love are going to have those same opinions that we have, and they are. They're just opinions, right? And so we just need to be respectful of that. And, and I just want to come back to the creativity. Be creative. This is the season of giving, the season of hope. And so, I want everyone and encourage everyone to focus on that. Doesn't have to be about financial. It could just be about picking up the phone and calling someone that you haven't spoken to in so long. You guys have no idea how many people I can't wait to get a hold of since I've been on island, just let everyone know, hey, I'm here, and even though we can't get together, we're now in the same time zone and I can actually speak to people, both family and friends. And so, find ways to connect, find simple things to be grateful, and just stay focused in the season of giving and hope, because I believe that it doesn't matter how bad the world has gotten through this pandemic and whatever is coming in our future. Christiana, you said this earlier, there's so much that we can learn from this, right? I've always said that there's wisdom in grief. And so for the last 5 years, I have been a student of grief, you guys, let me tell you. And I have found so much wisdom in what it is teaching me, not just from my husband's death, but from helping clients go through their own healing journeys, from going through all of the different losses that I have still been going through over the last 5 years. And so I embrace it, lean into that hard, like Robbie said, and just be able to look at what you can find to be grateful for, right? This is our theme today, right? An attitude of gratitude. The one final thing, though, that I do want to leave people is that having an attitude of gratitude does not mean that we minimize how we feel. Remember earlier, I said that you have to first lean into that, embrace your suck first, right? But also know that you can find things to be grateful for in the midst of grief and loss, pandemic, whatever it is that you're going through, right? And so I want to leave that with you guys. Don't ever minimize how you feel. Know that all your feelings are very real, very normal, very natural, and they are valid. So just acknowledge that for yourself and hold space for others, and then find gratitude. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Dar, for that. Robbie, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'm in my brain. I'm trying to like keep it to really simple things. But in practicing your gratitude, I think it's also important to give yourself grace. Again, speaking towards just leaning, sitting in your suck if that's what it needs to be, but also, practice that gratitude for yourself. Like we're all going through these hard stuff. It's hard. I know it's hard. Believe me, everyone here can attest to that as well. But just knowing that you're doing your best, with all the craziness of a lot of parents having to learn how to, virtual learn, essentially being they're not only the parent but the teacher, and having to balance that, and where is the boundary there, all of that stuff. I can't speak to that myself, but I've heard enough, and I can at least feel for you and give that empathy, for all the parents out there doing that. And honestly, you guys are all doing amazing. Whoever hears this, whoever's on the call right now, if your parents dealing with that struggle and have been dealing with that, just give yourself grace that you are doing the best you can. If you need to talk about it with your kids more, or to make things easier, then do that. Do the things, be intentional about your gratitude. Don't just look at things that are, obviously you can be grateful for, like the external factors, but you want to also take that gratitude towards yourself. That's one of the biggest things I've learned for myself, is that yes, I've always been, I've actually always practiced gratitude in the things that I have, and my, in my work and all the stuff. But obviously when I lost all of that, I was just like, well, what do I do with this? I was just like, I never really thought to really give it to myself too much. Not really. I did it just enough, right, to do the things. But when I truly had no choice, it was just, hey, it's just you and yourself here at home, figure it out. That's what I did. And when I did that, I found, it's the old saying, everyone here probably knows it. You pour, the better you pour into yourself, the better you're able to pour into others, right? And that's one of the phrases that I've been really sticking with me lately. And then also really just giving yourself grace. You are doing the things. If maybe you have too much on your plate and you need to say no to something, or you need to dial back to make it easier on yourself, because maybe you need to sit in your suck, and that's what it needs to be that day or that hour, whatever that works, however that works for you, then do that and say the no. It's okay. I know that everything is kind of go and everything's like, hey, figure it out. But you need to sit in your suck. You need to lean into your heart to work through it, to assess how you're feeling, and how can you take, okay, this is the best I can do right now, but what can I still do? You can still do something, and so I just want to encourage that, is be intentional with your gratitude, and don't forget to give that gratitude back to yourself, because everyone is doing the best they can. When I think everyone is doing an amazing job in their own lives. I can't speak for everybody, but I just want to say that everyone is probably doing amazing, and they don't think it. And maybe it might be hard for them to see that because they're just really stressed out, or they're just focusing on the next thing and the next thing. But just remember to give yourself grace, and to be grateful for yourself, and the strength and power and just everything that you give for your family and for your kids and whatnot. So.
Thank you so much. Such good, such positive tips and such real responses to how we can deal with such a difficult time. We did have a question. I don't know if Michelle, did you want to ask it live or do you?
Yes, I think that would be great, so everybody would be able to hear. So the question, ladies, is should kindness be emphasized with gratitude?
Okay, I
If
guess
anyone can, yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. You know, especially in this time that we live in, I think that it is so important that we really focus on kindness. And you know, it's one of those human traits that we should all have. And, you know, whether it is just a simple act of, like I said, picking up the phone and calling someone, that's an act of kindness, right? And guess what? The person on the other end is going to be grateful that you actually thought of them, right? So it goes hand in hand. When you show kindness, people are going to be grateful, and it fills your cup. You know, Robbie said this a lot, right? When you give yourself grace and you are grateful for the power that you have within you, so much easier to give to others, right? And it comes from a place of authenticity, and transparency and integrity and love. And so it's got to start from within first. So yes, definitely kindness is important, and I think it does go hand in hand. It's hard to be grateful if you don't show kindness, I think. So I think it's definitely a powerful duo.
Robbie, did you have anything to add? Go ahead.
Nothing really to add, but yes, definitely it does go hand in hand. You do, like, again, something as simple as a phone call. For me, because I do a lot of like emails and stuff, I just, you know, or messages between people, even if they're strangers or people that I'm just kind of working with, I tell them, hey, have a nice day. Hope you have a great rest of your week. You know, something like that. And you'll be surprised. People respond back to that, and they respond with like an emoji, and you don't even know them. You know, you just started emailing them today because you were told to by your boss or something. And for me, like that makes me feel good, you know. And I'm pretty sure the person on the other end, they meant it. They meant when they said, oh, you too, you know, stay safe and stuff like that. So definitely goes hand in hand.
Thank you, ladies. I don't know if the audience members have any other questions, or even if our Peace staff has any questions that they want to just throw in the chat box. We do have a comment here from a participant. Thank you both for your time and telling your stories. My condolences, Robbie, for the loss of your mom. We just found out that you're Bobby's niece, also that's on the side. So you're part of the Peace family too. So thank you for being here and for, again, sharing your vulnerabilities with us, both of you ladies. It's such a joy to have people who can really share their experiences and be very raw with our audience.
Yeah.
Dara, did you have something to say? Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for the ladies,
Oh.
and I think this is to maybe address the individuals that are feeling really in their suck right now. Like their suck is like they're at the lowest point, where sometimes even to have the energy to think about, you know, kindness and to be grateful and have gratitude for certain things, it's really difficult. It's like the tunnel vision is there, it's beyond reach. What would you tell a person who is just feeling so inconsolable, like it's just, you know, the end of whatever it is that they want their pain to be? They just want to end that. And how could you offer them some support and help?
So you know, for someone that's in a space like that, I think that it is definitely important to reach out to someone or to some people, right? To surround yourself with community, people that you love or people that you trust. You know, I don't believe that this is something that you should be going through by yourself. People are not going to understand the depth of your pain, and that is not our role as a human being, to understand the depth of your pain. Our role is to just be there with you, to hold space for you, to listen to what you have to say. And I think that that's where a lot of people are, you know, they lean into isolation, because we as a human race, we tend to want to give advice because we want to fix people. And we want everyone to know that grieving people don't need to be fixed. They just need to be heard. And I think once someone that is in that space knows that there's people out there that are not there to tell them that they shouldn't feel this way, or that they need to just get over it, or whatever, and that they know that there are people like us that are out there that are just going to hold space for them, it makes it easier to reach out and know that they're not alone. So I want to encourage people that are there to just reach out to this group right here, this amazing group at the Peace Office, because they have the resources that they can get you in touch with. Those of us with grief recovery, we're here. We're so perfect at being a heart with ears. That's what we do. That's our role in the community. And we will never tell you or judge how you feel. We just want to hold space for you. So reach out. Don't feel like that you have to do this alone.
Thank you. Robbie, did you have anything to add?
Um, well, Dar, Michelle here, the specialist, right? But yeah, I very much agree with that. Reach out. If talking to people that you're closest to is hard, because again, they're the closest to you, right? So they're the ones that are really gonna try to be the ones to give you all the advice, to say the right things, to try to fix you, right? Or maybe they just don't want to see you sad anymore and they want to help you. And so for me, I found that it is well, not better, but it's worked for me to reach out to people that maybe don't know too much about me or my story or my relationship. For instance, like my relationship with my mom. And it's just understanding that sometimes that's just how it's going to be. Like, unfortunately, the people closest to you may not be the ones are necessarily the right people to talk to if you're really deep in that suck and you're again, you're tunnel visioning and you can't see a way out. Reaching out to individuals like Peace and Dar and the grief recovery specialists here on Guam or even in the CNMI, definitely really encourage that, and just really reach out for help. And honestly, I can be that person too. I'm not a specialist. I kind of wish I was, but I have prided myself on being a really good listener. And like Dar said, listening, with our hearts and just letting people let it out. And that's kind of something that I do with my circle of friends. I let them know all the time, I'm here for you, whatever you want to say, whatever it looks like. And so if you wanted me to be a source, if you find me trustworthy from this panel, feel free to reach out to me as well.
There was one more comment in the chat. I'm just going to remind everyone that this will be the last, question we'll address. But if there are other concerns, or if you do want direct contacts with Dar or Robbie or any of the organizations that were mentioned today, or just want more information about the services that Prevention and Training and Peace, or even just Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center in general offers, you can definitely reach out to us at staff@peaceguam.org. There's also a feedback survey that is going to pop up right after you end the Zoom session. Please share your comments, as hopefully as raw as these ladies were today. It only helps us to improve and meet the community's needs, which is really what we want to be for. We're continuing to hold these lunch hours or until it stops being effective and useful and stops meeting the community needs. So we look forward to having you all join us in January. So it's the third Wednesday of the month, and we'll be sending out reminders or updates about the panelists and the topics as the months pass. Just be looking out. We'll also be posting a recording of the session. But there was, and I think it is a worthwhile question to ask is, and either of you ladies can answer it or give what your response to this, but what does hold space mean? Because that's something we use a lot of times in the community. And so it's kind of like when I say lived experience and people are like, what does that even mean? I don't understand. So can you maybe share a little bit about what you mean when you say hold space?
I think I can start there because I think I was the one who said that, holding space for someone. And basically that just means that you're there for the person for whatever they need from you. Even if it's just to sit and listen, allow them to cry, allow them to tell their story. If you're in a place that you're comfortable to offer a hug, to cry with them. That's what it means by holding space. Holding space means that you don't judge. You don't offer advice. What I said earlier, be a heart with ears, right? Just be there and acknowledge where the person is at. Let them know that their feelings are valid, right? That's what it means by holding space. Yeah.
Robbie, did you want to add to that, or was Dar's explanation enough?
Oh no, Dar's explanation was spot on. That's actually something for myself I've had to learn how to do because I'm kind of used to wanting to help and fix, and also just wanting to give advice and whatnot. And so for me, I just kind of come from a place like, hey, if you want to be heard, if the situation were reversed and you wanted to be heard, then you would do the same thing for that person, right? So.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our lunch hour, and it really did go by quickly. Thanks to the wonderful conversation our guest speakers have been able to engage us in. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your experiences, your wisdom with us today. And I'm sure the audience appreciates it also. Our office is currently also offering free online training and suicide prevention. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to contact us at staff@peaceguam.org. Additionally, if any of you do need assistance, and we've seen from our panelists today that assistance can come in many different ways. We also have our Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's crisis hotline that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that is 647-8833. Happy holidays from our family to yours, and we hope you are safe. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Can I just mention one last thing really quick before we go?
Yeah.
So the Giving Grief a Voice team is actually doing a holiday grief talk. It's a community talk. It's always free. It's virtual online. I can ask Michelle to share the registration for that, but it is going to be on Friday, this Friday at 7 p.m. Via Zoom. And, we want to encourage everyone to come, and please let everyone else know. I know that the holidays, even before the pandemic, sometimes brings on feelings of grief and loneliness for a lot of people, especially those that have lost loved ones during this period, or even before that, right? I always experience grief around this time of year. It was always Frank's favorite holiday. So, I want to just be able to offer that to people, let them know that we have a safe space for you to come, hear the stories of some of our grief recovery specialists, learn what we're doing to be creative during this holiday season, despite the pandemic, despite all the losses that we're experiencing ourselves. So I just wanted to invite everybody to that.
Thank you so much, Dar. Did you have anything you wanted to share, Robbie? Any announcements or anything that?
Nothing really big. But Rotaract Club of the Marianas, we are here. We are hopefully ready to serve our community again, whatever that looks like. Again, as incoming president, starting next year, July. If you have any organizations, any partnerships you consider us for, whatever that looks like, feel free to reach out. We are on Facebook, Rotaract Club of the Marianas, also on our Instagram, or you can email us at rotaractmarianas@gmail.com. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much again. And thank you to everyone who stayed with us for the hour and 15 minutes. And we hope you're able to, you benefited by hearing about some resources and some positive, healthy habits. Again, have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day.